Okay, hello everybody. We're going to start in a minute. We're going to give some people a little bit more time to log in. Feel free to use the Q&A box or the chat box to say hello. Okay, we're going to get started here. I'd like to welcome everybody. I'm Lauren Oglesby. I'm the coordinator of content communication and programs for AIA New Orleans. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this webinar, Electronic Bidding and Public Bid Openings in the COVID-19 Era. We are joined today by Chuck Perrett from Letterman's. Letterman's is one of AIA New Orleans' sustaining sponsors and professional affiliate members, and we are very excited to welcome them to our virtual stage here. And just a heads up about our format. We've muted all the attendees, but you will be able to ask questions through the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom window. So be sure to type in your questions there, and Chuck will address them at the end of his presentation. We would also ask that you do not use the raise your hand function. If you miss any part of this, we will be making a recording of this webinar available afterwards as a resource. For this and all of our webinars, you do have to attend the webinar as it happens live to gain an LU credit. And lastly, we are a small team. We don't have the capacity to handle IT issues for our attendees while we're conducting the webinar. If you do run into a backup, if you run into problems, if you do run into connectivity issues, you can try the call-in number that was sent to your email. And if you are calling in on a phone and you want credit for attendance, go ahead and send your name and AIA number to me. My email address is lauren@aianeworleans.org. I will report credit for you. All right, on the agenda today, we have Chuck Perrett from Letterman's, and then we'll have a Q&A session using your typed comments and concerns. And then we'll just close out by highlighting some of our upcoming webinars and other resources that we have put together for you. So I will introduce our presenter now. Chuck is representing the 10th generation of Perretts to make their home in New Orleans. Chuck is a managing partner at Letterman's, which is a family-owned company that was founded in 1949. From a 5-year stint as a high school teacher and volleyball coach in the early 1990s, Chuck has had a connection to Letterman's his entire adult life. He's steered Letterman's through the transition from a print-oriented company to the modern era of digital information management. He's a sought-after speaker and recognized thought leader in the reprographics industry. And in recognition of their success, Letterman's was named runner-up Shop of the Year in North America by the International Reprographics Association's publication, Modern Reprographics. And we are going to switch over to Chuck now. And just a reminder again, if you have any questions, do go ahead and use that Q&A box. So Chuck, you can start sharing your screen.
Great. I will, let's get that up. All right. Is that up on your screen? Should be.
Yes, I can see that.
Great. All right, well, welcome everybody, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit today about what we're doing over at Letterman's to kind of continue really the work that we've been doing in advancing technology options in the bid phase for design professionals, and then specifically kind of in response to the environment that we're working in right now with you know, these with the stay-at-home order. My name's Chuck Perrett. As Lauren had said in the intro, I've worked in construction document management for over 20 years. I'm the developer of several software applications relating to the trying to make it easier for design and construction professionals to communicate with each other. The one we're talking about specifically today is Letterman's BidConnect service, and I'm a construction technology advisor to a group called ReproMax, which is a consortium of independently owned reprographics companies here in North America. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to review relevant rules and procedures. Just to kind of, this should be something that I think for you know, for most practicing architects who have you know, who've shared bid phase responsibilities. Some of this is going to be secondhand or second nature. For some of you, it's something you've, you know, sort of assiduously tried to avoid your whole life. Like, please don't make me deal with bidding. But we're going to kind of go just look real carefully a little bit at what are the rules and procedures and where those come from. And then we're going to use that to kind of identify some critical performance criteria during the bid phase and at bid opening to make sure that we comply with those obligations. And then lastly, we're going to, I'm going to just walk you through what we're doing at Letterman's to demonstrate how we are submitting bids electronically through Letterman's BidConnect, and show you how we have been conducting these, you know, sort of online virtual open forum bid openings, which have been really successful and have allowed construction projects to continue on schedule despite the social distancing and stay-at-home orders. So first, let's, I just also want to just real quickly point out, you know, a lot of people will say, well, this is I hear this a lot, like, this is a private job. Public bid law really doesn't apply here. And I just want to remind you, there's no such thing as private law. Even on private projects, disputes are ultimately settled within a specific jurisdiction, and the rules of that court are a public set of laws. In Louisiana, public bid law does have some features that specifically deal with procurement by public entities, but those same rules are what are used in court to guide disputes and disagreements between stakeholders in any construction project. So if you have a contract, which everyone does, regardless of whether it's a public or private project, you are going to, you cannot hide from what we refer to as public bid law. Alternative delivery methods such as design build, construction manager at risk, integrated project delivery, all of these things are modifying the contractual relationships between the owner, the builder, the designer, but they're not modifying the laws governing relationships or those performance responsibilities. So it's an important thing to keep in mind as we move forward. We use the word public a lot, but we just need to understand that what we're talking about is the legal climate in which we operate in commercial construction in Louisiana. So for that, we're really going to be, as we look at kind of what are those rules and responsibilities, I'm really drawing from 4 sources of information. We're going to look at some of the stuff that is in the AIA contract documents. We're going to look at the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. We're going to look at the Louisiana Revised Statutes. And lastly, we're going to poke in at the Louisiana Administrative Code. So let's kind of dive in a little bit to that. When we think about like, contract documents, the one that is the most specific, they're the one that everyone is probably the most familiar with is the A701, instructions to bidders. Obviously, this is a companion document to the A201 or any of those sample contracts. But it's here in the A701 that that we get the contractor's instructions about how to bid on a project. As we look at this, I wanted to just kind of draw your attention to a couple of things. One, in Article 3, around the distribution of bidding documents, it says bidders shall obtain complete bidding documents, as indicated below, for the issuing from the issuing office, and bidders shall use complete bidding documents in preparing bids. It's interesting, and this is the last time you're going to see in the rest of these things. It's interesting to see here in the AIA documents. Everything is written to place all performative actions as the responsibility of the bidder. The bidder is the one who, it's the bidder's responsibility. The bidder shall obtain bidding documents. This language all becomes, it's subtle there, but it becomes very specific, and it starts to define how disputes get resolved in terms of who's responsible for what. And as much as the AIA document would like to write it so that everything is the responsibility of the bidder, let's take a quick look at what the Louisiana Contractors Licensing Board says in their, what they call the LSLBC Blue Book, which is their summary document that's available on their website regarding just rules and regulations for bidding. And they make it very clear, like first page in their foreword, take a look what this says. It is the duty of the awarding authority to ascertain if a contractor is duly licensed under the provisions of Louisiana Revised Statute 37 before permitting the contractor to obtain plans and specifications, submit a bid, or offer to construct a commercial project. So the contractors right away are saying that the summary of this law is that it is not the bidder shall, all that stuff that is in the AIA contract documents. The Contractors Licensing Board has written the law so that it is the responsibility of the awarding authority. This is the owner, and the architect, as in performing that bid phase function, sort of inherits that responsibility to make sure that contractors are licensed before you give them plans and specifications, before you even allow them to have plans and specifications, certainly before you allow them to submit a bid. So this is one of those responsibilities that we're going to see coming up in terms of how we manage this. Then the third area that we're going to look at, when we look for guidance about your rules and responsibilities, is, of course, the Louisiana Revised Statutes. The heart of this is Louisiana Revised Statute, Title 38, Chapter 2212. This really is the one that where you see all of the laws governing the advertisement and bidding of construction projects in Louisiana. It is going to cover the availability of bid documents. It covers very specific rules about the distribution of addenda, bid procedures, and electronic bidding. And if we kind of click into this, I just want to read a few things here that become important when we start talking about the electronic submission of bids. Because really the electronic submission of bids is just a different format for conducting work that has traditionally gone on for almost a century in Louisiana, where contractors are delivering envelopes. So here in Title 38, 2212, we see each bid shall be either hand delivered by the bidder or his agent, in which instance the deliverer shall be handed a written receipt. So we're going to see this come up later, this notion that like the electronic process has to replicate these traditional rules about the electronic about the hard copy submission, or such bids shall be sent by registered or certified mail with return receipt, or shall be submitted electronically as provided in subsection E. So if we go down and we look at subsection E, I'll go ahead and just come down to this. Public entities shall provide as an additional option, this is on every project, a uniform and secure electronic interactive system for the submittal of bids for public works requiring competitive bidding. And it says that any public entity providing such a system has to follow the rules laid out in the Louisiana Administrative Code, that's this LAC, and we're going to talk about that next, or just after we get out of the Louisiana Revised Statutes. This has become important in the number 6 here, has become important during the shelter in place. Public entities shall have the option to require that all bids be submitted electronically for any competitive bid let out for public bid. Public entities shall include all bidding documents on the electronic website accepting the electronic bids. So we have written in the law the option, which several of my clients have taken advantage of to keep their projects on schedule, to say that you must submit all of your bids electronically. Then the last thing I wanted to point out in this section is just some generic language about the distribution of the bidding documents themselves. Each public entity advertising and letting for bid a contract under this section shall furnish all prime bidders who request bidding documents and who are properly licensed with at least one set of complete bidding documents. So this is absolutely the inverse of what is written in the AIA A701 instructions to bidders. There we have language that says it's the bidder's responsibility to get documents, but the law says it's the public entity shall furnish complete bidding documents. It's a subtle thing, but basically what the law is saying is it's the architect's responsibility to make sure that if a licensed contractor steps forward and says, I want to bid on this project, it is it is the architect or the owner's responsibility to deliver complete bidding documents to that person. And that becomes another critical performance thing that we're going to touch on later on. Lastly, I just want to look at the previous, in Louisiana Public Bid Law, it had made some reference to the Louisiana Administrative Code. The Louisiana Administrative Code establishes the rules for submitting and receiving electronic bids for public works contracts. So inside here, you've got, and we're going to see it in just a second, but there are essentially 4 key things that they're talking about here. One is the notion that it has to be a two-way service. So you have to, the place where the contractor goes to get the bidding documents is the same place where they send their bid. That site must provide a receipt to when they submit the bid. It provides some rules about secure transmission, and most of this can be summed up with maintaining the concept of a sealed envelope. That is to say, in a hard copy bidding situation, if a contractor were to deliver an envelope onto your desk prior to the designated time for the bid opening, that envelope remains sealed through the entire process until after all of the bids have been submitted and the deadline has passed. And then it's at that moment that those sealed envelopes can be opened in a public forum so that there is no opportunity for fraud, which we will not touch on it here, but I should tell you that our state has a long, deep, and rich history of tremendous malfeasance and fraud in conducting public construction. So here in the Louisiana Administrative Code, Chapter 7, we've got some language on submitting and receiving electronic bids for public works projects. And the biggest things here provide, in addition to simple things like be accessible over the internet, be available 24/7, provide a two-way service, like we had talked about before, which is to say that bid-related information goes to the contracting community and then allows bid submission from the contracting community to the owner. That we automatically send a bid receipt whenever a bid is submitted, and that we ensure that the bid cannot be read by anyone until the public bid opening. That it must be encrypted. So those are just that's just a quick run through of the bedrock documents that that kind of lay out where all the rules are coming from. So now what we want to do is just kind of say, okay, now that we've looked at that, let's take a look at how do we come up with, use those rules to identify some performance criteria during the bid phase and at bid opening to make sure that you're complying with those obligations. So when we say, when the LSLBC in Title 37 says it's the duty of the awarding authority to ascertain if a contractor is duly licensed under the provisions of that title before permitting the contractor to obtain plans and specifications, submit a bid, or offer to construct a commercial project, you must document that you have verified that the prime bidders on your projects have an active and valid license before they get plans and specs, or certainly before they submit a bid. When we get into the Louisiana Revised Statutes, and it says that you shall furnish complete bidding documents, and the bidding documents are defined as, plans and specifications, bidding forms. It's the responsibility of the architect to furnish interested parties with complete sets of documents. You have to prove that you gave them everything on the project. And that includes maintaining some control and specifically over like versions of documents. Also in Title 38, there's that language about the addenda that you, which I didn't refer to we kind of glossed over up ahead, but this is in Title 38 about the distribution of addenda. Again, it just basically says if the public entity issues or causes to be issued any addendum modifying the bid documents, then the public entity shall transmit a copy of the addendum to all prime bidders. The actionable thing here is that, again, the law writes it so that it is your responsibility to provide traceable, proven delivery of addenda. There are, as we get into the actual submission of the bids, like we had mentioned before, it's in Title 38 and it's in the Louisiana Administrative Code section there. All the stuff that we just reviewed, you cannot submit bids on projects via email. It does not satisfy that sealed envelope. It does not satisfy that two-way communication. It has to follow those whatever method you choose has to follow those rules outlined in Article 7 of the Louisiana Administrative Code. You have to provide, the system must provide a receipt and maintain that sealed envelope, which means that you can't open the document until after the time for the bids has expired. So we've taken a look at some of those rules and procedures. We've identified some performance criteria. Now we want to do, what we'd like to do is just kind of demonstrate an electronic bid submission and participate in a mock bid opening. We're going to be using my own site, Letterman's BidConnect. I just wanted to point out a few milestones and what we've been doing. In 2001, 19 years ago, Letterman's was the first company in Louisiana to offer the electronic distribution of bid documents. In 2009, we were the first company in Louisiana to offer electronic submission of bids on those projects. And then just this year, 11 years after we started, we became the first company in Louisiana to conduct an all-electronic bidding along with an open forum online public bid opening. And all of that has really come together to, it's a coming together of the demand created by the social distancing and stay-at-home orders, coupled with work that we've been doing, like I say, for the last 19 years to try to bring to try to modernize and bring a level of efficiency to the bid process in Louisiana that ultimately saves all of us money. as taxpayers, every time there's a contested bid because someone doesn't follow a certain letter of the law, every time there's a rebid, all of those dollars come out of your pocket and my pocket as taxpayers. And, you know, I do feel a certain responsibility as a person, you know, in this small part of the business of the state of Louisiana, to try to do it as efficiently as possible. And so that's what we've created here at Letterman's BidConnect. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to launch into our site. Keep in mind another thing that I did not really allude to enough, I think, earlier in this, but when we say shall provide, you know, when we look at all those instances in the language in the Louisiana Revised Statutes and in the Louisiana Administrative Code about the architect or the awarding authority shall provide these things, what they mean is that those things have to be provided at no cost to the contractor. And this is something that not enough people you know, are aware of. Letterman's we provide this service as a billable charge back to the owner, but everything we provide to the contractors is free. It does not cost money to register and get an account at Letterman's. It does not cost money to look at the projects that we have in our public plan room. It doesn't cost money to download those projects. It does not cost any money to submit a bid. You know, we take the letter of the law around the words provide seriously, and I think that's been one of the things that has slowed down the adoption of electronic bidding, is that there are other providers besides Letterman's out there, and a lot of them go out of their way to charge contractors for every little piece of it, and the contractors just don't want to do it because they would rather just turn in an envelope for free. We provide that free solution here. So when you come into a project at Letterman's, let's just kind of take a look at this real quick. I've set up this project and I'm pretty much on schedule. It's 12:35 right now, and we've got this project bidding until 12:40 today. So when a project at Letterman's is accepting bids, I just want to kind of run you real quickly through what we have here. First of all, you should know that all of that, the language about the licensure verification applies to prime bidders only. And in a site like Letterman's, we're providing documents to material suppliers, subcontractors, and in some cases, even other plan rooms. And so the licensure verification only applies to prime bidders. So the way that this works at Letterman's is that we ask at the beginning of a project, if you're going to be a prime bidder on the project, we ask you to email, and you see this note down here, send us an email at bidconnect@lettermans.com with the subject line of the project and that you're a prime bidder. You include your Louisiana contractor's license number in the email, and we add you to the prime bidders list. So when that happens, a human being at Letterman's goes out to the LSLBC's website, verifies that the contractor has an active license, and then and only then we add them to a prime bidders list that we keep on the project. And I've just got some sample companies in here just to kind of show you what that looks like. But this prime bidders list is available and accessible to anyone on the project at any time. And so that another real convenience thing, both to, especially to architects, is that when you use this service, you no longer have to field those phone calls and emails from every subcontractor or material supplier under the sun wanting you to send them a list of the prime bidders. So you have this side benefit, but ultimately it comes from that beginning, from that basic requirement that we verify licensure for prime bidders at the point at which they're accessing the bid documents. Another thing that happens with us is that notion of the complete bid documents, complete sets. You must transmit only complete sets. So we allow you to come in and view anything on the site individually, but you can't download anything individually. The only way to download to get any of this content out of the site is to actually download the entire job. And when you do that, we get a receipt. We maintain a record of everything you downloaded. And we actually are maintaining records of every time you view a document as well. So if you download, view, or you can also order printed documents through our site. Anything you do with any of these documents, we are tracking and we record all of that. So, as I said earlier, we're accepting bids up until a minute from now. When we go to view those bids, let's see if this form, oh, it's not allowing me to view that form in the, inside this share, it looks like. The contractor comes over and clicks on the on this Submit Bid Docs tab. I'm going to see if I can exit out of my, if it's launched inside my show. Sorry. This was the part that we could not replicate. And it's turned 12:40 anyway. So what's going on is that you can see that, like, when we hit 12:40, the status on the job goes to bidding close, and that Submit Bid Docs tab disappears. What was in that Submit Bid Docs tab is basically it fills out a form entirely for you based on your login information, and then all you do is drag and drop a file onto a little square that pops up here. When the once the bidding is closed, we can go over to this Bid Results tab, and now we can see that, like, we've got we have bids in here. Prior to the bid submission time, none of these are active links. But when we, once we get past that point, everything becomes decrypted, and this can only be seen by Letterman's or by someone that we designate who's going to run the bid opening. So as we would get into a bid opening, what we do is, we've got this same view on the screen, and then we're sharing this out through a Zoom conference, that's exactly like the one that we're participating in now. And this becomes, as we open each bid, this becomes our outside of the envelope information. This is that sealed envelope. So we've got we identify the project, we identify the submitter, we identify their license number, which we can then use this to go back out to the LSLBC and verify that this license number is attached to this submitter and their address. And it's only after that that we can then go in and take a look at their documents. If any of this is incorrect, which is what many people have dealt with these bid protests where someone writes the wrong license number, their company name and address isn't right. All of that stuff is bypassed by the verification that we do at the very beginning, so that all of this becomes pre-populated, and you literally can't screw this up. So that's the best part about it, is that we, through this electronic process, we completely eliminate all of those little typographical and clerical errors that result in bids not even being able to be opened. But then once we verified that all that is accurate and complete, then we can open their documents. And basically what we're getting is this is a bid package submitted on a previous project, but we've got, we go through all of these forms, a bid form, any kind of a unit price form, the bid bond, and then a power of attorney and corporate resolution. One thing to keep in mind as when you get into the submission of bids, it's a good practice to, particularly in the electronic only submission of bids, you, along with your client, need to determine what you're going to accept in the form of the bid bond. Some of the bonding agencies are very comfortable submitting an actual digital bid bond, which can then be just added along with the upload as a separate bid document. Those are secured, locked documents that use their own digital signatures. In some cases, and in the case of this one, we just allow the contractor to upload a scan of a notarized hard copy bid bond, and then we provide you at Letterman's with language to put into your instructions to bidders that basically add the hard copy of the notarized copy of the bid security as that you have to provide it on demand with those post-bid documents if you're the apparent low bidder. But that's it. We go through this, we read them out, we read them aloud. I would also point out that our site, when you submit the bid, our site will send you a receipt email. So when you turn in your bid, Letterman's will sends the contractor that receipt along with a list of the files that they sent, and then a date and time stamp that goes along with it. But sorry, I went back out of the PowerPoint. One second. So anyway, that wraps up our, everything I wanted to show you guys on our process and how we've been doing it on electronic bid openings. We'll open it up to questions. If you would like copies of anything that we provided today, links to relevant documents and all that kind of stuff, you can send me an email at chuck@lettermans.com, and I'd be happy to provide you with copies of any of the documents that we've gone through.
Thank you so much, Chuck. We're going to give everyone a couple minutes for questions. So do type those in if you have any. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead. Oh, looks like we do have a question. Does the LA Public Bid Law affect federal projects like the VA or DOE, etc.?
Yeah, so that does not, it typically does not. Some of that depends on the actual procurement and the funding sources. So in the case of the VA, I know Letterman's was very involved in the construction of the VA hospital, and they had Section 3 requirements and really sought under federal guidelines to maintain tremendous local participation in the project. And when they do that, we would then those laws come into play. But it's entirely possible on federal projects. I'm thinking specifically of certain things like the Corps of Engineers has done, where the Department of Defense as well. They have their own sets of rules, and if they're federal projects paid for with federal dollars on federal property, then no, then Louisiana Public Bid Law does not apply. There's another question. What language would an architect use in their advertisement for bid letter to direct potential bidders to Letterman's BidConnect? So a couple of things there. When you start a project with Letterman's, we start at the beginning with the first advertisement. So when you actually are inserting the advertisement to bid, before the project even advertises to bid, we're giving you language to put into your bid advertisement that directs bidders to or interested parties to be able to, that the bid documents are being distributed in electronic form. They may be obtained without charge and deposit from Lettermans BidConnect.com, and that electronic bidding will be an option, or it may be required, like in the current situation. So we provide that language to you. Again, if you'd reach out to me directly at chuck@lettermans.com, I'd be happy to send you a language for the electronic distribution of bid documents and the electronic submission of bid to put into your bid advertisements. And then typically we put the information on the Zoom conference for the open forum bid opening. We put that in the final addendum as a link. We don't really we haven't put those Zoom conference links in the advertisement. We just say electronic bidding is required, and then subsequently by addenda, we publish the address of the open forum meeting that people can attend. I hope that answers your question. So if we don't get any other questions pop up, again, I just want to remind you, you can always reach out to me at chuck@lettermans.com. And I would be thrilled to death to talk your ears off about public bidding, or just not talk at all and just handle it for you. One of the things that one of the primary roles of Letterman's as a company in 2020 is to really provide bid document distribution, bid submission, and all document forms of communication as a professional service, to just relieve design professionals of the responsibility of having to disseminate information, and put more of the architect's focus back where I think it should be and where I think you want it to be, which is in creation, in design, and in helping make the decisions that make projects go. And so we're happy to have a small part in that as we move forward and help you be a mouthpiece to communicate with your project teams. So thanks, everybody. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the opportunity to present. It does look like there's
one more question here.
Sure, let me see. I'm gonna, are there any other jurisdiction that you're familiar with their bid laws? Yeah, for sure. Letterman's, I mean, we're a Louisiana company, but we are doing work, both our Louisiana firms that are our clients are doing work all over the country and world, and then through our Project Pro service, that's our construction administration tool, we have architecture clients all over the United States. And so, yeah, we're working in lots of different jurisdictions. It is important to realize that every state does not, or has its own sets of rules. One of the things that I will tell you, just as I'm assuming that I'm talking to a room full of Louisianians here, for those of us who are, who might have the perception that in so many ways Louisiana is behind the curve, one of the things that is pretty encouraging from my perspective and looking at the rest of the country is that Louisiana has really written a very good set of guidance on how to do this, and they have really bolted down the bidding process specifically. And maybe that is a response to the fact that in the past there were so many problems and some of the, like I say, just shenanigans that occurred, earlier in our state around fraud and malfeasance among our public officials. But today we have a really good set of rules, and we, I think, have some of the best written laws on this in the country. The short answer to that question is yes, we do have experience in other jurisdictions and work all around the United States. We're not really too much in this role internationally, but certainly around the United States we do. And then the long answer, of course, is just take heart, Louisiana. We are not the bottom at everything. I think we're pretty good in the public bid law and public bidding arena compared to other states. So good for us.
That is great to know, honestly. Yeah, does anybody else have any questions? Okay, if no other questions come in, we're going to just close up. Thanks again to Chuck. And we only have a couple minutes left on the clock, so I'm just going to quickly go over our upcoming learning opportunities. If you are a member of AIA New Orleans, we have a member meeting with our president, Terry Dreyer. That's tomorrow at noon. We have a couple webinars up next week. We have ATG running the aggregation of marginal gains on May 5. That's also at noon. We have a town hall with a city official going to be on permitting and the permitting process. That's going to be May 6th. That's Wednesday, and that's going to be at 4 p.m. We then have a new series that we're starting, Story with Architects. We're starting off with Stephen Dare on May 8th. That's next Friday. And that will be Stephen just going over some lessons learned from the past, things that hopefully will have lessons that can be brought to bear on the situation that we find ourselves in. We have some other webinars coming up later this month. We have AOS and Sherman-Williams giving webinars on May 13th and 20th, and Schlitter giving one on June 2nd. So you can sign up for all of those by going to our website, aianeworleans.org, and click on the events tab to sign up for those. And then if you are a member, we definitely encourage you to join our LinkedIn group for members and continue the conversation there. We are continuously updating our website with COVID-19 resources. And of course, you can always reach out to us directly with questions, comments, or concerns. My email, again, I'm Lauren, and that's my email right there. And then our interim director, you can email her at Erin@aianeworleans.org. All right, thank you so much to Chuck again, and thank you all for attending. And we hope that you are staying safe and healthy. Have a great weekend, everybody.